She collapsed mid-laugh. One second my daughter was teasing her brother about ice cream. The next she was gasping, her body crumpling like a puppet with cut strings. The sound that came from her lips still haunts me. Fragile, wet, utterly human. The hospital lights were too bright, too clinical for what I was going through. My wife gripped my arm, as though holding me together would stop her from shattering. Machines beeped. Nurses ran. Words like dehydration, possible seizure, neurological event hung in sterile air. But nothing hit me harder than the notification that buzzed on my phone an hour later. A Facebook post from my mother-in-law and my sister. A photo of them raising wine glasses. Caption, finally getting peace without the pathetic drama queen. P.S. They knew she was in the hospital. My daughter, 12 years old. And they laughed. I didn't yell, didn't even tell my wife. I just stared at that caption until the words lost all meaning, until all I could see were shapes of cruelty dressed up as humor. That's when something inside me went quiet, an eerie, calculated kind of quiet. I met my wife 12 years ago in a rainstorm outside her mother's bakery. She had flour on her cheek and lightning in her smile. Her mother, Margaret, was warmth wrapped in politeness, the kind of woman who smiled while judging everyone's worth in silence. My sister Nadia loved her. She's what you need, she used to say. Someone to soften you. For a while she did. But softness makes you vulnerable when people value control over kindness. It started small. Comments that disguised cruelty as concern. She's so dramatic. He's so distant. They don't know how to raise those kids. And then the subtle isolation. The way they'd reschedule gatherings so we couldn't make it. Whisper advice to my wife when I wasn't in the room. It didn't matter. I loved her. I loved us until their poison started seeping in. It was around the time my daughter started having fainting spells. Stress, the doctor said. But stress doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's fed, nurtured. I checked her messages once after that hospital night. My wife had left her phone on the seat. The chat between her and her mother was open. You know this is because of his cold parenting, right? Poor girl just craves affection. My wife, he's trying. Mom, please stop making this worse. Margaret, I'm not making it worse. I'm showing you reality. Reality. The word stuck. Because the truth was, I'd been watching them twist our family's pain into entertainment for years, and when they mocked my daughter's collapse, the line got crossed. Not emotionally, strategically. That night, while my wife slept in the hospital chair, I started collecting screenshots, messages, transaction records, little breadcrumbs of lies. I discovered my sister had been borrowing money from Margaret for months for emergencies, she claimed. But her emergencies looked an awful lot like designer handbags and weekend trips. I traced one transaction back to a business account under my daughter's name. That account had been opened by my sister using a shared email with my mother-in-law's phone number for verification. They'd been running money through my child's name to dodge taxes. Family emotion is loud. Revenge is quiet. I spent the next 6 weeks rebuilding the silence. Every smile I gave them, every family dinner I showed up to, every thank you, Margaret, was practiced, deliberate. I transferred the screenshots, bank statements, and messages to an encrypted drive labeled innocuously as family photos. Then I drafted 2 letters. One addressed to the Tax Investigation Bureau, the other to the Homeowners Association. Margaret's property title, as it turned out, had inconsistencies that left her exposed. I didn't forge anything. I simply exposed what was already there. That's the thing about truth. It doesn't need dressing up. While they laughed online, I built a paper trail offline. And then came the final move, the one that made me smile. When they got back from their peaceful weekend, they found my car in their driveway. I was sitting at their kitchen table, the same one where I'd eaten countless awkward dinners, where they'd smiled and cut me down with compliments. On the table sat a single folder neatly labeled. Their laughter died when they saw the heading, financial discrepancies, and evidence of fraud pending submission. Margaret's face went white. Nadia stammered. "You wouldn't." I didn't speak. I just shifted the folder slightly so they could see the printed screenshots, her messages about my drama queen daughter next to the bank statements in my child's name. Then I placed a small USB on top of the folder. "Keep it," I said. "A souvenir." They started shouting. Accusations, excuses, desperate grabs for control. I didn't respond. I stood, buttoned my coat, and headed for the door. Before I left, I said, "Peace, right? You wanted peace. Consider it delivered." And then I sent the emails to the authorities, to my wife, to everyone they'd ever gossiped with. Their world didn't explode. It collapsed quietly, legally, permanently. My wife cried when she saw the evidence. Not for them, for the years she spent defending their cruelty. She apologized through shaking lips. I didn't need her apology. I only needed her to see. Margaret's accounts were frozen within a week. Nadia lost her job. Their laughter disappeared from online. And my daughter, she got better slowly. She doesn't know what happened behind the scenes. She only knows we're safe now. Sometimes I sit by her hospital photo, the one where she's pale but smiling, and think about how close I came to losing her. How silence, once a weapon used against me, became the weapon I perfected. Revenge wasn't rage. It was restoration. And that kitchen table? They sold it months later to cover legal fees. But I like to think of it as mine still, because that's where Justice pulled up a chair, folded her hands, and finally had her meal.